Questions. My dear friends, have you ever noticed that it's not traffic jams that test our patience, it's the people in those traffic jams? Someone cuts you off. Questions. And suddenly the calm yogi in you becomes a Formula One driver ready for revenge. Yes, we all talk about peace of mind. But the moment Wi-Fi goes off, peace also goes offline. So today, questions. Let's explore how to remain calm. Not sometimes, not when life is perfect, but at all times. Once a monk was serving tea to a visitor. He poured tea into the cup and kept pouring until the tea spilled over. The visitor shouted, "Stop, it's full already." The monk smiled and said, "Exactly. You are like this cup, full of your own opinions, anger, questions, and worries. How can I pour wisdom into you?" My friends, when our mind is already overflowing with anxiety, even peace has no space to enter. Questions. But how do we do that when life throws 1,000 things at us? Deadlines, disappointments, people who test our nerves. Let's go step by step. When something upsets you, a rude comment, questions, a delay, a failure, take a pause. Not a long one, just a few seconds. Because in those few seconds lies the difference between reaction and response. A reaction is emotion, a response is wisdom. Questions. Remember, calmness is not the absence of emotion, it's the mastery over it. Someone once said, if a drop of poison can ruin a pot of milk, questions, a drop of anger can ruin your day. Ask yourself, is this small thing worth disturbing my inner peace? We can't control people's behavior, but we can control our response. Questions. Let others do drama, you do dharma. We often complain, why is my life so stressful? But have we noticed how many things are going right every single day? Your lungs are working. Questions. Your heart hasn't taken a day off since birth. Isn't that worth a little gratitude? A grateful mind is a calm mind. Gratitude changes chaos into clarity. Questions. We complicate our peace by chasing too many things, too many gadgets, too many desires, too many comparisons. Calmness comes from simplicity. Declutter your room, declutter your phone. Questions. Declutter your mind. You don't need more things. You need more space inside you. When someone behaves badly, don't think, how dare they talk to me like that? Think. Questions. Maybe they are going through something I don't know about. Hurting people hurt people. Don't take things personally. Take them compassionately. Questions. That's not weakness, that's strength with a smile. When you're angry, your breath becomes fast. When you're calm, your breath is slow. Questions. So if you want to control your mind, start with your breath. Inhale peace, exhale tension. Even 2 minutes of deep breathing can reset your inner world. Questions. Most stress comes from trying to control what we can't. The weather, other people, the past. The secret of calmness. Shift your focus from control to contribution. Don't ask questions. Why is this happening to me? Ask, what can I learn or do right now? Wisdom says, do your best and leave the rest. Questions. Carrying resentment is like carrying fire, hoping the other person will get burned. You only end up hurting yourself. Questions. Forgiveness is not about others. It's about freeing yourself from emotional debt. Forgive not because they deserve peace, but because you do. Questions. Our mind loves to live in the past or future, worrying, replaying, regretting. But life is happening now. Calmness is not found in memories or expectations. It's found in the present moment. Questions. So slow down, eat with awareness, listen with attention, live like you mean it. And finally, real calmness doesn't come from Netflix, nature walks, or even vacations. Those are temporary. Questions. Lasting peace comes from connection with something higher than yourself. Whether you call it God, the universe, or the source. When you align with that. Questions. Storms outside can't shake the stillness inside. Just like the ocean, waves may rage on the surface, but deep down it's silent. A traveler once asked a saint questions. What is peace? The saint took him to a river and said, look into the water. The man looked, but the surface was disturbed. The saint waited a few minutes until the ripples settled. Questions. Now look again, he said. The man saw his clear reflection. When your mind is disturbed, you can't see truth. But when it's calm, everything becomes clear. So, my friends, questions. Life will never be free of problems, but we can be free within them. Don't pray for a life without challenges. Pray for a calm heart to face them. Questions. Because peace is not when there's no noise around you, peace is when there's silence inside you. Thank you so much. Be calm, be kind, and keep smiling. Questions. Have you ever tried pouring tea into a cup that's already full? No matter how good the tea is, it simply spills out and makes a mess. In life, questions. Our minds are often like that overflowing cup, filled to the brim with thoughts, opinions, judgments, stress, and worries. We keep trying to pour new knowledge, peace, and happiness into it. Questions. But nothing stays. Why? Because there's no space left. Empty your cup is not just a beautiful metaphor. It's a life-changing attitude. It means learning to let go of mental clutter, questions, emotional baggage, and unnecessary noise that steals our peace. In today's world, our minds are busier than ever before. We wake up, and before our eyes even adjust to the morning light, questions, our phones start buzzing. Notifications, emails, news, gossip. It's like a buffet of distractions served to us daily. We consume so much information that by noon, questions, our mind feels like an overstuffed suitcase. There's no space for calmness, clarity, or creativity. Imagine you are driving your car with all the windows fogged up. You can't see the road clearly. Questions, right? That's exactly what happens when your mind is clouded with excessive thoughts. You make decisions in confusion, you react in anger, you speak in haste, and later you regret it. Questions. The first step toward calmness is not doing something new. It's unlearning the habit of carrying unnecessary thoughts. Let me give you a simple example. Questions. Suppose you had a rough day at work. Your boss scolded you, a colleague took credit for your idea, and on top of that, you got stuck in traffic. You finally reach home. Questions. But you're still mentally replaying the office drama. You can't enjoy dinner, you can't connect with your family, and you definitely can't sleep peacefully. Why? Questions. Because your mind is still at the office. That's what happens when we don't empty our cup. We keep carrying yesterday's pain into today's peace. Sometimes we even carry pain for years. Questions. Someone's harsh words, a breakup, a failure. We replay those memories again and again like a sad playlist on repeat mode. But tell me honestly, if you hold a glass of water for 1 minute, questions, it's easy. For 10 minutes your hand starts to ache. For an hour your arm goes numb. The weight of the glass doesn't change. What changes is the duration you hold it. Similarly, questions. The burden of your worries doesn't hurt because they're heavy, they hurt because you don't put them down. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. Questions. You stop allowing every little incident to rent space in your head. We say we want peace, but we keep holding on to every negative thing that disturbs it. Questions. Let me ask you, if your phone storage is full, what do? You delete old photos and videos, right? You clear cache, uninstall unnecessary apps. Questions. Then why don't we do the same with our mental storage? We keep storing grudges, regrets, and guilt from 10 years ago and wonder why the system hangs. Every day, questions. We need to perform a mental cleanup. Just 5 minutes at the end of the day. Sit quietly and ask yourself questions. What am I carrying that I no longer need? It could be resentment towards someone, self-doubt, or fear of what people think. Gently tell yourself questions. It's time to let this go. Because peace doesn't enter a cluttered space, it needs room to breathe. Let me share a real life reflection. I once met a man who was constantly stressed, angry, questions, and restless. When I asked him what troubled him the most, he said, My colleagues never respect my work. I asked him how long this had been happening. He said, questions. 4 years. Then I smiled and said, so you've been carrying their behavior inside your head for years. Well, they probably forgot about it in a week. A friend's questions. That's the tragedy of not emptying your cup. The world moves on, but we stay stuck. We can't move forward because our heart is busy revisiting old wounds. Start small. Questions. When someone criticizes you, instead of storing their words in your heart, just smile and say, thank you for your feedback. Then let it go. When plans don't go your way, questions. Don't replay the disappointment. Release it and trust that life has better plans. When people betray you, don't carry their betrayal as your identity. Carry it as your lesson. Questions. Emptying your cup is not about losing memories. It's about losing attachment to what hurts. When your heart is light, your mind becomes bright. You see situations clearly, you respond calmly. Questions. And you act wisely. Calmness doesn't come from a perfect life. It comes from a mind that's not overflowing with noise. In fact, true wisdom often comes to those who are humble enough to admit they don't know everything. The full cup of ego never learns. The empty cup of openness always receives. So be open to new ideas, questions, new experiences, and new perspectives. When you think you already know, you stop growing. But when you say, let me listen, let me learn, you invite peace to sit beside you. Remember, questions. Every sunrise gives you a chance to start fresh. Every night gives you permission to let go. Don't carry yesterday's worries into today's possibilities. When your mind feels heavy, questions. Pause and ask yourself, what am I holding on to that I can release right now? Maybe it's fear, maybe it's overthinking. Maybe it's that endless need to prove yourself. Let it go. Questions. Because life becomes beautiful when you travel light. So, my dear friends, before you seek peace, first create space for it. Empty your cup of negativity, grudges, and clutter. Fill it with gratitude, questions, compassion, and openness. When you do that, calmness won't have to be searched for. It will naturally stay with you. Because peace is not found by holding more. It's found by holding less. Questions. Have you ever said something in anger that you later wished you could take back? Or sent a message you regretted just 5 minutes later? We've all been there. In the heat of the moment. Questions. Emotions take the driver's seat and wisdom sits quietly in the back. That's why so many of our problems begin not with what others do to us, but with how we react to them. Questions. There's an ancient saying, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. Questions. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space, that tiny pause, is the birthplace of calmness. Questions. Most of us don't realize how much damage a few seconds of uncontrolled reaction can cause. One harsh sentence can break a relationship built over years. One angry email can destroy trust. Questions. One frustrated decision can lead to regret that lasts a lifetime. But if we just pause for a moment before reacting, everything changes. Let's look at an everyday example. Imagine you're driving, questions, already late for work, and someone cuts you off without signaling. Your first instinct, anger. You feel the blood rushing to your head. Your hands grip the steering wheel tightly. Questions. And words you don't usually use start bubbling up in your mind. At that moment, your body is reacting, not responding. But if you just take a deep breath and pause, you gain control again. Questions. Maybe that person was in a hurry for an emergency. Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe it just doesn't matter enough to ruin your peace. Questions. That one small pause could save you from starting your day with tension. The pause is not weakness. It's emotional strength. Questions. It's a sign that you're not a slave to your emotions, but a master of your mind. Anyone can shout back, argue, or explode. That takes no skill. But to stay calm in chaos, That's real power. Questions. Think of your mind like a glass of water. If you shake it, you can't see through it clearly. But if you let it sit still, the water becomes transparent and clarity appears. When we react instantly, questions, we shake our own mental water. But when we pause, things settle down and we see reality as it is, not as our emotions paint it. We often misunderstand calmness as passivity. Questions. But calmness is not the absence of action, it's the presence of wisdom. Reacting is emotional, responding is intelligent. A reaction is like fire, fast, fierce, and destructive. Questions. A response is like light, calm, clear, and illuminating. Let's consider another real life example. Something we all experience. You're at work, questions, and your boss criticizes your presentation harshly in front of others. Your mind immediately screams, "That's unfair." Your ego burns. You want to defend yourself, maybe even talk back. Questions. But you remember, pause before you react, you take a breath, you listen, you process. Maybe your boss had a bad day. Maybe the criticism, though harsh, had truth in it. Questions. Maybe it's an opportunity to grow. By choosing to respond instead of react, you turn an insult into insight. Reactions are impulsive, responses are intentional. Questions. The pause gives you that moment of intention. It's like pressing the mute button on your anger until your wisdom catches up. Questions. One of the most inspiring stories that illustrates this is from the life of Buddha. Once a man came and insulted him continuously, saying all kinds of harsh words. Buddha stayed silent and calm. Questions. The man, shocked, asked, "Why aren't you angry with me?" Buddha smiled and said, "If someone offers you a gift and you don't accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man replied, "Questions, to the giver." Buddha said, "Exactly, I do not accept your anger." That's the power of the pause. It's the art of not accepting negativity thrown at you. When you learn to pause, questions, you stop letting other people's behavior control your peace. In relationships, this one habit can save so much pain. When your spouse or friend says something hurtful, don't reply immediately. Questions. Silence is not surrender, it's strategy. Take time, reflect, and come back with love instead of ego. Later, questions. You'll realize most arguments aren't about who's right. They're about who lost control first. You see, reacting is easy, responding is wise. If someone throws a stone at you, questions, you can throw it back or you can build a bridge with it. The pause gives you time to choose which one you want to do. In today's fast-paced world, we've lost the art of pausing. We scroll fast, questions, talk fast, decide fast, but peace lives in slowness. The pause is where you meet yourself before you meet the world. You can practice it daily in small ways. When your phone pings, questions, don't rush to grab it. When someone criticizes you online, don't type back instantly. When life doesn't go as planned, don't panic. Breathe, reflect, then act. This small discipline, questions, repeated daily, builds a calm mind and a wise heart. The pause is also deeply spiritual. It teaches humility. It reminds you that not everything needs a reaction, not every battle needs to be fought, questions, and not every comment needs a reply. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer. Even in nature, we see this wisdom. Before lightning strikes, there is stillness in the air. Before a wave rises, questions, the ocean pauses. That pause is preparation for power, not passivity. When you pause, you don't stop, you strengthen, you gather energy, direction, and clarity. So, questions. Next time life tests your patience, when someone disrespects you, when a plan fails, when things go wrong, remember this simple rule. Questions. Pause before you react. That single second can protect your peace, save your relationships, and reflect your maturity. You don't have to control everything around you. Questions. Just control that one moment between emotion and expression. That's where your freedom lies. That's where calmness is born. A calm person is not someone who never gets angry. Questions. It's someone who knows how to pause, breathe, and let wisdom lead. The pause is small in time but mighty in impact. It's the difference between noise and peace, between reaction and reflection, questions, between ordinary people and truly wise souls. So the next time you feel the fire of anger rise, remember, you don't have to put out the fire outside, just make sure it doesn't start inside you. Questions. Take a breath, pause, and let peace speak before your emotions do. Because sometimes the greatest strength is not in saying something, but in choosing not to. Questions. We live in a world where it's so easy to complain. The coffee's too cold, the traffic's too slow, the wife is too weak, and our salary is never quite enough. We grumble about the weather, questions, about people, about situations, almost as if complaining has become our second language. But here's the truth, a mind that is full of complaints cannot be full of peace. Questions. The moment you replace grumbling with gratitude, your entire life begins to change from the inside out. Gratitude is not just saying thank you. It's a way of seeing the world. Questions. It's choosing to focus on what you have instead of what you lack. It's understanding that every single day you wake up is a blessing, every breath you take is a miracle. Questions. And every challenge you face is an opportunity to grow. Gratitude doesn't change your situation. It changes your perception, and your perception changes everything. Questions. Think about your morning routine. You wake up and check your phone. If you see a message that annoys you, your day starts on a negative note. But what if, instead, questions, the first thing you did every morning was close your eyes and whisper, thank you. Thank you for another day. Thank you for my family. Thank you for the roof over my head. Questions. For the food on my plate, for the heart that still beats inside me. The moment you start your day with gratitude, you shift your energy. You become calmer, more centered, more alive. Questions. Let's take a simple example. Two people are stuck in the same traffic jam. One person bangs the steering wheel, curses the driver ahead and feels frustrated. The other person turns on some music. Questions. Takes a deep breath and says, at least I have a car, at least I'm safe, at least I'm going home. The situation is the same, but their experience is completely different. Questions. Gratitude doesn't remove the traffic, but it removes the tension. The truth is, the more we complain, the more reasons life gives us to complain. But the more we appreciate, questions, the more reasons life gives us to appreciate. Because where your attention goes, your energy flows. Gratitude multiplies joy. Grumbling multiplies misery. Questions. There's a beautiful story of a man who was always unhappy. One day, he visited a wise monk and said, I have so many problems. My job is stressful. My family doesn't understand me. Questions, and life feels unfair. Please help me. The monk smiled and said, come with me. He took the man to a lake, handed him a handful of salt, and said, questions. Put this in the water and taste it. The man did, and the water tasted bitter. Then the monk took him to a river, gave him another handful of salt, and said, questions. Now put it here and taste again. This time the man said, it tastes fresh and sweet. The monk smiled again and said, the amount of salt is the same, but the water is different. Questions. Stop being a glass. Become a river. That's what gratitude does. It expands your heart. The bitterness of life doesn't disappear. Questions. But it becomes small compared to the vastness of your thankfulness. We all face difficulties. But if you look deeply, even in the darkest moments, there is something to be thankful for. Questions. When life feels hard, gratitude becomes your lifeboat. It reminds you that even though you may not have everything you want, you still have everything you need to keep going. Questions. I remember meeting a young man who lost both his legs in an accident. Yet when I asked how he managed to stay so positive, he smiled and said, I lost my legs, questions, but I didn't lose my smile. That sentence hit me deeply. Most of us have far more than we acknowledge, yet we live as if we're deprived. Meanwhile, questions. There are people with less who live with more joy, not because life gave them more, but because they learned to thank more. Gratitude is the antidote to anxiety. When you focus on what you have, questions, your mind relaxes. When you focus on what's missing, it tightens. A grateful person doesn't have a different life, they have a different lens. When you wear the lens of gratitude, questions, even ordinary things become extraordinary. The sound of birds becomes music. A simple meal becomes a feast. A smile from a stranger becomes sunshine. Next time you feel like complaining about your job, questions, remember, someone out there is praying for one. When you feel tired of cooking, remember, someone out there is hungry and has nothing to eat. Questions. When you get irritated by your family's constant noise, remember, someone out there lives in silence, wishing for the sound of love. Gratitude is realizing how rich you already are. Questions. The most peaceful people are not the ones with perfect lives. They are the ones who find perfection in small things. A grateful heart doesn't wait for everything to go right. Questions. It learns to find right in everything. Gratitude is not a reaction to happiness. It's the reason for it. Here's a small practice that can transform your days. Every night before you sleep, questions. Think of 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be big. Maybe your favorite meal, a good conversation, or just the fact that you made it through the day. Questions. Feel that thankfulness deeply. Do it for a week and see how your mornings feel lighter, your mind calmer, and your heart softer. In our rush to chase what we don't have, questions, we forget to value what we already do. Gratitude brings us back to the present moment, to what's real and beautiful. When we appreciate life, life appreciates us back. Remember, questions, you can't be angry and grateful at the same time. You can't be stressed and thankful in the same breath. Gratitude and negativity cannot coexist. One will always push the other out. So, questions. If you want to be calm, fill your heart with thankfulness. Don't wait for the perfect life to feel grateful. Feel grateful, and life will start to feel perfect. Questions. The secret to a peaceful life is not having everything you desire, but desiring what you already have. The more you count your blessings, the less you'll notice your burdens. So today, right now, questions. Stop for a moment. Look around you. Breathe deeply. You're alive, you're breathing, you're still here. That's already more than enough reason to smile. Questions. Because when gratitude becomes your habit, peace becomes your nature. Questions. In today's world, life has become like a shopping cart that's overflowing. Not just with things, but with thoughts, expectations, and endless to-do lists. Questions. We're constantly collecting gadgets, close opinions, achievements, as if more always means better. But ironically, the more we add to our lives, the heavier we start to feel. Questions. The truth is simple. Peace doesn't come from adding more, it comes from needing less. When we simplify, we don't lose comfort, we gain clarity. Questions. Have you ever noticed how good it feels when you clean your room or organize your desk? Suddenly, your mood lifts, your thoughts feel lighter, and your energy flows more freely. Questions. That's not just coincidence. There's a deep connection between our outer space and our inner space. A cluttered environment often mirrors a cluttered mind. Questions. When our surroundings are filled with unnecessary things, our mind gets distracted, anxious, and restless. But when we simplify our space, we create room for calmness to enter. Questions. The same is true for life. Most of our stress doesn't come from what we lack. It comes from the overload of what we don't need. We chase too many desires, compare with too many people, questions, and carry too many responsibilities that don't truly belong to us. We've mistaken business for success and complication for importance. But life's beauty often hides in simplicity. Questions. Let's take a simple daily example. Imagine you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is check your phone. There are 50 unread messages, 10 notifications, and 3 reminders. Questions. Before you've even brushed your teeth, your brain is already in chaos. You start your day reacting instead of reflecting. What if instead you decided to simplify your mornings? Questions. No phone for the first 15 minutes. Just you, your breath, and your thoughts. You'll notice how that one small act brings immense calmness throughout the day. Questions. Simplifying doesn't mean giving up everything and living like a monk. It means learning to distinguish between what's necessary and what's just noise. We fill our calendars, our wardrobes, questions, and even our minds with excess, and then we wonder why peace feels so rare. When we remove what's unnecessary, we make space for what truly matters. Relationships, health, self-growth, questions, and purpose. Think of your mind as a garden. If you keep planting too many seeds of worry, comparison, and ambition, nothing grows properly. The plants fight for sunlight, and weeds take over. Questions. But if you choose only a few meaningful seeds and nurture them with attention, the garden flourishes beautifully. In the same way, when we simplify our goals, we can focus deeply, work peacefully, questions, and achieve meaningfully. There's a story about a fisherman who lived by the sea. Every day he would catch a few fish, go home, spend time with his family, and relax under a tree. One day, questions. A wealthy businessman visited him and said, "Why don't you fish more? You can sell the extra fish, earn more money, buy a bigger boat," questions, and eventually build a company. The fisherman smiled and asked, "And then what?" The businessman said, "Then you can retire peacefully and enjoy life." The fisherman laughed and said, "Questions. That's what I'm already doing." This story reminds us that sometimes we're chasing what we already have. We run so fast toward the future that we forget to enjoy the present. Questions. Simplifying life means slowing down enough to notice life happening now. Let's look at relationships. Many people lose peace because of unnecessary drama, ego, and overthinking. Questions. We complicate love with expectations, pride, and control. What if we simplified it by bringing honesty, kindness, and understanding back into it? When we let go of the need to always be right, questions, we make space to be happy. A simple sorry, a warm smile, or a quiet understanding can restore harmony faster than any argument ever could. Even emotionally, we carry too much. Old grudges, questions, regrets, jealousy, guilt, they all take up mental space. Simplifying your emotions means learning to forgive, to move on, to travel light. Questions. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to respond to every criticism. You don't have to prove yourself to everyone. Questions. Peace comes when you realize that not everything deserves your attention. Financially too, simplicity brings freedom. We often buy things not because we need them, questions, but because they make us feel momentarily important. But that feeling fades, and we're left with more clutter and less contentment. Questions. Real richness is not in having more possessions, but in having fewer desires. The happiest people are not those who have everything. They're those who enjoy what they already have. Questions. Simplicity also applies to the mind. Many of us live in mental overdrive, thinking about 10 things at once, worrying about tomorrow, regretting yesterday. Try focusing on one thing at a time. Questions. When you eat, just eat. When you walk, just walk. When you work, just work. When you rest, just rest. Doing one thing with full awareness brings more satisfaction than doing many things half-heartedly. Questions. Look at nature. It is the ultimate teacher of simplicity. A flower doesn't compete with the one next to it. It just blooms. The sun rises and sets quietly every day without needing applause. Questions. The river flows naturally without forcing its way. There's a peaceful rhythm in simplicity. When we align with that rhythm, we too begin to flow with life instead of fighting it. Questions. If you really think about it, Most of the things we worry about never mattered as much as we thought. Years later, the arguments, the comparisons, the material pursuits, they all fade. Questions. What remains is how peacefully we live, how kindly we loved, and how gracefully we let go. So take a look around your life, your home, your mind, your relationships, and ask yourself questions. What can I simplify? What can I let go of that's stealing my peace? Maybe it's unnecessary possessions, maybe it's toxic thoughts, or maybe it's just the pressure to please everyone. Questions. Release it. Simplicity is not emptiness, it's elegance. It's not loss, it's liberation. It's the art of living lightly and joyfully. The less you carry questions, the farther you'll go. Because calmness travels best with a light heart. In the end, peace doesn't come from perfection, it comes from simplicity. When you simplify your life questions, you don't just create space in your room or your schedule. You create space in your soul. And in that space, peace settles naturally, like still water after a storm. Questions. Have you ever met someone who was rude to you for no reason? Maybe a colleague snapped at you, a friend ignored your message, or a stranger gave you a cold look. Questions. Our natural reaction in such moments is to respond with equal energy. If they're rude, we'll be rude back. If they're cold, we'll show them we can be colder. Questions. But what we often forget is this people's behavior is a reflection of their inner world, not yours. When you start understanding this truth, your whole approach to dealing with people changes. Questions. You stop taking things personally and you start responding with empathy instead of ego. Empathy is the ability to see the world through someone else's eyes, to feel what they might be feeling. Questions. Ego, on the other hand, sees only me. To my hurt, my pride, my reaction. When ego rules, we build walls. When empathy rules, we build bridges. Questions. The choice between the two decides whether we create peace or conflict in our relationships and our inner world. Let's take a simple example. You're standing in line at a grocery store. Questions. And the cashier is visibly irritated. She doesn't greet you, scans your items roughly, and seems completely uninterested in being polite. Most people in that situation would react with frustration. Questions. Why is she being so rude? But what if you paused and looked deeper? Maybe she's been on her feet for 10 hours. Maybe she's dealing with personal pain. Maybe she's just tired. Questions. If you choose empathy over ego, you might simply smile and say, "Long day, huh?" That one line can soften her mood instantly. Sometimes questions. Kindness is not about grand gestures. It's about small moments of understanding. In relationships too, ego is often the silent destroyer. A misunderstanding happens. Questions. And neither person wants to take the first step to resolve it. Both waking, thinking, where should I apologize first? That's ego talking. And while ego may win the argument, empathy wins the heart. Questions. When you approach a disagreement with empathy, trying to see what the other person might be going through, you shift from wanting to be right to wanting to make things right. Here's the truth. Questions. Everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. The person who seems arrogant might be hiding insecurity. The one who's quiet might be drowning in overthinking. Questions. The one who laughs loudly might be masking pain. When we judge, we add to their burden. When we empathize, we help lighten it. Once, questions, a teacher wrote the word "engioi" on the board and asked the class to rearrange it. After a few seconds, one student smiled and said, "If you move one letter, questions, it becomes a GNY." The teacher shook her head and said, "No, look deeper." Another student said softly, "Questions. If you remove one letter, the I, it becomes ANGIRY without the ego." That's the secret. Remove the I from the situation and anger disappears. Ego fuels reaction. Questions. Empathy fuels resolution. In our professional lives, empathy can transform entire workplaces. A boss who leads with empathy earns loyalty, not fear. A team that communicates with empathy creates trust. Questions, not tension. When leaders listen to understand instead of listening to reply, they bring calmness to chaos. Questions. The best organizations are not those with the smartest people, but those where people feel seen, heard, and understood. Questions. Think about it. How many conflicts in your life came not from what actually happened, but from how it was perceived? Someone didn't text you back, and you assumed they don't care. Questions. A friend didn't invite you, and you concluded they don't value you. The mind creates stories faster than reality can correct them. Empathy slows down that process. It allows you to ask questions. Maybe there's another side to this story. Here's another simple daily example. You're driving and someone honks impatiently behind you. Instantly, questions. Irritation rises. What's wrong with this person? But what if that driver is rushing to a hospital? What if they're scared or anxious? We don't know. And because we don't know, questions. Empathy gives us the wisdom to respond gently. Even if the other person is wrong, your peace is still your responsibility. There's a beautiful saying, questions. Hurt people hurt people. Most of the anger we receive from others isn't about us. It's about their own pain. When someone lashes out, it's often a cry for understanding. Questions, not a declaration of war. If you can see that you won't absorb their negativity, you'll respond with compassion instead of confrontation. Let me share a small story. Once, questions, a little boy accidentally spilled water on his father's important papers. The father, furious, shouted and scolded him harshly. The boy ran away crying. Later, when the father calmed down, questions, he found out his son had been trying to clean his desk as a surprise gift. The man was filled with regret. In that moment, he realized that a second of anger can destroy what years of love built. Questions. If he had paused and seen through his son's eyes, the outcome would have been different. Empathy requires patience. It requires slowing down before judging. It means listening not to reply questions, but to understand. It's not about agreeing with everyone. It's about acknowledging their humanity. When you start practicing empathy, you'll notice how your relationships soften. Questions. Your stress reduces and your mind becomes calmer. Because empathy doesn't just heal others, it heals you too. Our ego constantly whispers, "You were right." Questions. They were wrong. But our heart knows peace doesn't come from proving superiority. It comes from choosing understanding. Sometimes, questions, saying, "I understand how you feel," has more power than saying, "I'm right." So the next time someone behaves badly, don't let your ego say, "How dare they?" Let your empathy say, questions, maybe they're hurting. When someone misunderstands you, don't rush to defend yourself. Explain gently, with love. When life feels unfair, instead of reacting with anger, questions, look for compassion. You'll find that empathy not only calms the storm around you, it calms the storm within you. At the end of the day, peace doesn't come from changing how people treat you. Questions. It comes from changing how you see them. When you choose empathy over ego, you free yourself from the prison of reaction and step into the freedom of understanding. Questions. Because calmness is not about having no conflict. It's about handling every conflict with a kind heart and a wise mind.